Last week, when Trump suddenly fired Mark Esper from the Secretary of Defense position, I withheld any comment on it because I honestly couldn't track what such a move meant. It was weird for Trump to do this, as outgoing presidents normally allow the presumptive incoming president to select their cabinet and keep or replace the officials in them. But who can tell what Trump is doing other than Trump? And I know that people are convinced that Trump is carrying out a coup to stay in power by decapitating the leadership of the Department of Defense. But I have to tell you that I'm not entirely convinced that a coup is what he's doing, even though he is clearly trying not to admit that he lost the election and is trying every weak legal maneuver to avoid admitting defeat so publicly on such a grand global scale for as long as he can. But I'm not sure we have a coup on our hands here. And I know people don't like to hear that, but the United States is an expert at staging coups in other countries. And while invalidating democratic elections as a pretext for declaring an elected leader a despot who needs to be removed is one aspect of U.S. coups, there's almost always a military aspect to them, either through covert means with the CIA secretly trying to assassinate elected leaders, or the U.S. military overtly being sent in to allegedly liberate countries from the leaders they chose, but that Washington does not want. So I'm very careful not to use the word coup in what Trump is doing, even though I'm sure people are convinced that Trump fired Mark Esper to take over the military and, I don't know, roll tanks on the election offices in each state that he lost and force them to declare him the winner. I mean, anything can happen, but I don't think that's likely to be one of those things. And I have to also say that it's real rich to me that all of a sudden everybody and their cousin knows what a coup is when it comes to Trump denying what appear to be valid election results, but who didn't seem to know the word existed all those times the U.S. facilitated actual coups in so many other countries. Countries that are rising up against the neoliberal right-wing economic and political apparatus that resulted from those U.S. coups right now. But I'm digressing. Let's get back to Trump and what he's doing with the Department of Defense. No, I don't think he's taking over the military and firing Esper, because what it seems Trump was really doing was to install loyalists who would do at least one thing that it appears Esper wouldn't, and that was to draw down troops in Afghanistan. Now, what Trump has done, as acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller announced yesterday, is to order the reduction in the number of troops in Afghanistan from 4,500 to 2,500 by January 15th. And remember that Trump and company is scheduled to leave their furnished rental at 600 Pennsylvania Avenue at noon on January 20th. Now, although Miller and an unnamed senior defense official said that the decision was the result of months of collaboration between government officials, national security cabinet members, key leaders in Congress, and military leaders, we actually don't know who any of those people are. So we don't know who really agreed to or opposed this plan. Well, except for Mark Esper, who, interestingly, doesn't have a job anymore. And I bet we're not ever going to hear from the military leadership, at least, who were opposed to this plan, not until Trump leaves, because for months they've been advising against drawing troops down, claiming mostly that the Taliban has violated all kinds of agreements that warranted the U.S. staying in the region. But these folks have seen Trump fire lots of people for disagreeing with him, and they don't want to lose their jobs, too. Now, of course, Trump's troop withdrawal order has angered war hawk Republicans like Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and the House Armed Services Committee ranking member Mac Thornberry, the Republican from Texas, who invoked the typical rhetoric of defending our freedoms and not appeasing our enemies in response. But Democrats have been just as opposed to the announcement, with Senator Tammy Duckworth saying that this is the wrong way to do a troop drawdown, as it will leave behind a huge amount of American military hardware for the Taliban to use like, toys on the floor. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer said that the announcement is a hasty move intended to undermine the incoming Biden administration. More on that in a minute. And the only reasonable voice from most of the congressional leadership came from Republican Josh Hawley, who said that the American people deserve an end to this war. At this point, the Biden-Harris campaign hasn't commented on this development, but we can guess what their response will be if and when they do. So everybody's angry that Trump is appearing to fulfill a campaign promise to move forward toward ending at least one of the endless wars, but we should be careful not to paint him as an anti-war hero. I can't remind you enough that Trump is a master manipulator, because while he's presented himself as somewhat anti-endless war, not entirely anti-war, Trump has also approved billions of dollars for more ground vehicles, more helicopters, more F-35s, and more ships to continue to fight these endless wars. And there are rumors that he plans to release a 2022 federal budget before he's finally escorted off the White House premises. And that may include an obscene amount of money to be allocated to the Navy to fulfill Mark Esper's plan to expand the naval fleet by 500 ships. Why is this important? Because the U.S. is preparing for heating up the Cold War with China, and Trump is not at all opposed to that. I mean, he did confer with people on ways that he could get away with attacking Iran. So I'm not at all singing Trump's praises as a hero of the anti-war left with this move in Afghanistan. But yes, this troop withdrawal from Afghanistan is a good thing that's going to play well in whatever comments Trump makes on his way out, because that's what this is really about. But this is just another indication of how divorced from human decency the politics in this country really are, when we have to accept a good move from a horrible person who made it for all the wrong reasons, primarily to serve himself. Even in the struggle for peace in American politics, we just have to take what we can get. Follow Luke Mon Nation on patreon.com/LukeMonNation for lots of great content.